Hello there and welcome. We're back at the Ritz for our tea time treats amongst a fantastic group of fabulous women, a number that's growing by the day, which is incredibly gratifying. So thank you all for being part of this, and thank you all for the comments that you leave and the conversations that you're having if you've joined the Facebook members group page of Tricia's Super Troopers. I'm really loving reading some of the things that you're writing about and the ideas that you're sharing. I'd also like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this, because if you weren't out there, then there'd be no point in me sitting here talking to my computer screen as I do every day. This is also giving me a huge sense of purpose. As you can imagine, I have to get up every morning, I have to put my makeup on, fix my hair, think about something to wear, decide which earrings I'm going to wear today out of my vast collection. And it's just helped me so much. So you're kind enough to say that it's helping some of you to stay positive and to stay connected. So I'd, on my behalf, like to say thank you also, because it's just making a big difference to how I'm getting through this this time. And I really want to talk a little bit about that today, this sense of purpose. I think it's a very interesting question, and it's something that as we get older becomes, I think, more important rather than less important. When we're younger, we often have a sense of it, purpose automatically through, I don't know, when we're at school, we have to get up and do our work, and then we go perhaps to college, and then we start work, and that gives us structure. It gives us objectives and goals and aims, and our lives are filled with purpose. Maybe we start a family and we raise that family, and again, we know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and we probably know the kind of end point that we want to get to. Some of you, of course, are still working and you still have that sense of purpose. Some of you are in enforced idleness, I'll put that into quotes at the moment, but would go back to work and will go back to work at the end of it. And some of you are retired. And I often think that when we hit that retirement phase, all that purpose tends to drain away, and suddenly we're left with this challenge of what we do with the rest of our lives. And that's sort of what I want to talk about today. Two sort of end points. The first end point is how to give yourself a sense of purpose during this brief, we hope, moment in time when we can't do all the things that we would usually do, which probably do give us a sense of purpose. We're going to go on that cruise, or we're perhaps going to I don't know, restock the garden with beautiful plants, and you can't get to a nursery at the moment. Whatever you are enjoying in your retirement. So there's short term, but there's also longer term. What are you actually going to do with the rest of your life, which is a huge question. Anyway, I do remember the other day that I talked about a journalist who'd found himself in isolation in the Antarctica, cut off from his family and friends, and made to ponder big questions. And the questions that he asked were, what should I do with my life? And what am I for? And they are such difficult questions for us to answer. But I've picked up on something that was on a post on Facebook, and somebody asked the question, why don't we all have a BHAG for this time, and obviously possibly in our lives? Now, what on earth is a BHAG? No, it's not a big, hairy, audacious girl. None of us wants to end up a big, hairy, audacious girl at the end of this. It's actually a big, hairy, audacious goal. Something that makes our spine tingle a bit and really gets our juices flowing, if you like, in terms of, oh yes, that's interesting. I'd really like to do that. So let's have a look at BHAGs, big and small. First of all, again, going back to that Facebook page and what people are talking on there, some really lovely things that came up around wanting to do things during this time that you haven't had time for before. So one idea was to make a quilt. I think this was Annette. I'm sorry I haven't got the names of all the people that mentioned this, but I do think this was Annette. Make a quilt out of baby clothes that she saved. And I think that's just a lovely idea. You know, you're creating a memento, a wonderful memory, and that quilt in the future will always be associated with this time in your life. And I think it's going to grow up, you know, before COVID-19, after COVID-19 period. We're going to be referring to it. The second was, I want to finish a penguin I'm knitting. Don't ask. So we won't ask, but good on you. You know, get that penguin done over the next 2 or 3 months. Another one was Annie talked about learning a poem every day. I think that is a particularly nice idea. It's incredibly good for our brains to test our memory in that way. And learning a beautiful poem that you can recall is such a nice way to spend time in this time. If you can learn one a day, my goodness, that really is quite a challenge and a great goal. And another thing is perhaps to learn something that you've never had time for before. Somebody mentioned learning during this time British Sign Language. You know, if you've got somebody in your life who's deaf, or you have a non-verbal child, although for the children, I think Makaton is perhaps the easiest thing to do. We do some Makaton signing with India, my little granddaughter, who was non-verbal. She's now starting to say simple things, so she can ask for what she wants, and I can more or less understand what she's saying now, but sometimes she does sign because she gets frustrated, and it's easier for her to tell us what she wants by signing it. So something like that that's a real challenge, because it's quite a complex thing to do. Or there might be something else that you'd love to learn, maybe start to learn a language, or whatever. I say whatever floats your boat. Maybe you have a very simple objective, which is to end it not having done in your husband during the time, or your partner, or whoever you live with. That is absolutely a joke, but I saw a brilliant thing on Facebook the other day. It was two women were talking. It was obviously after this crisis had passed, and one saying to the other, "Where's your husband?" And the other one says, "Oh, he's in the garden." And she said, "Oh, can't see him." And she says, "No, you might have to dig down a bit." Made me laugh anyway. So obviously you have to coexist with whoever that you're living with at the moment. I don't have a partner, I don't have a husband, so I just have to get along with myself. So I think, you know, that in itself can be a challenge sometimes, but I'm getting there, let's put it that way. So these are sort of goals, objectives you can have in the short term, but what about your life in general? When you get out of here, and this enforced almost imprisonment that we're in at the moment, that's what it feels like sometimes. What about the rest of your life? Is this period going to make you reframe and consider again the things that you really want to do? And that's where the BHAG comes in, I think. That's the big, hairy, audacious goal, the dream, the impossible dream. Oh my goodness, I've always wanted to. If only I could. Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if we were able to whatever. You finish the sentence. I can relate this to a personal experience that I had. I think quite a lot of you, certainly if you've read the book that I've written, Living the Life More Fabulous, will know the story very well. But at 65, I was feeling very, very low, very down. I'd had that very challenging year with my granddaughter India being very sick, and supporting the family as much as I possibly could, and feeling needed and having an enormous purpose every day. Get up, look after Freya, get to the hospital, help with India, whatever my day was. And that was pretty much 7 days a week. And suddenly I felt like a whale that had ended up on a beach, and I was flapping around and I couldn't get back into the sea. It's the best way to express it. I was doing all sorts of things. I was filling my time, but with things that were deeply unsatisfying, watching a lot of daytime television, and just generally not bothering to go out very much. And I actually started thinking, what can I do about this? So I wrote down a few things, and I wrote down the question, what do you enjoy? What do you miss? What would you like to do right now? And so all of those things, and they were sort of churning around in my head. Anyway, What do you like? What do you miss? And I thought, do you know what? I've always loved business. I've always been quite entrepreneurial. I like the engagement of trying to take something and create something new from it. I miss business meetings, believe it or not. Some of you will be horrified by that, but I actually enjoyed sitting in a room with people, talking about a problem, sorting that out. I miss that contact with people in a business context. I also knew that I had to get out more. I had to meet more people. So, and I was also exercised about the beauty industry. I didn't like the way that it was selling me anti-aging creams. I didn't like the way that it treated me and told me that I got to look younger all the time. I kept thinking, I'm fine. Why do I need to be younger? Why don't I need to look younger? What is all this anti-aging stuff? I felt cross about it. So I put all those things together and I came up with a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, which was to create a makeup business, and I would sell makeup specifically formulated to take account of the aging face, and I would sell it to older women. And it was kind of crazy. I knew nothing about the beauty industry. I knew nothing about how to create a beauty business. But I just thought, what's the worst that can happen? I'd got a little, not a huge amount of money, but I had some money that I could sort of set aside and say, okay, I could gamble with that. So I did, basically. And, you know, the rest is history, as they say. You know what happened next. I did all the things that I needed to do. I put the idea together. I got it off the ground. I launched it. I put videos onto YouTube showing the makeup being used and tutorials. It was successful. They were successful and the business grew. And now we have a customer base that is worldwide, and we have a team of 10 and we all work together in this business. And I'm 72 now, 7 years later, and I can say that I've had the best 7 years of my life. So had I not made that first phone call that I made to a cosmetic manufacturer saying, I've got an idea, I need to talk to you, can I come and see you? Nothing would have happened. I would still, perhaps 7 years later, be sitting on my sofa watching a lot of daytime television and wishing that I could get out more. So sometimes you have to take this leap into the unknown, but it's very exciting when you do. And there is no end point to this because, you know, obviously the business is still growing and it's still a hugely exciting part of my life. But we had a very surreal experience a couple of years ago. Our products were chosen to go into the Oscar goodie bags, and we decided to go out to LA. So my two daughters who work with me in the business, we flew out to LA and we ended up on the red carpet going to watching people go into and ultimately going to Elton John's after party. How mad and surreal is that as an experience? If you had told me when I was sitting on my sofa being very low at the age of 65 that we would end up doing that, I would have said, yeah, not in a million years. So I'm saying today, how about dreaming the impossible dream? Think about those things that you might really be able to do if you just think about. First of all, you've got to imagine it, visualize it, and then start to think about those things that perhaps one day, when you have the time, when you have the energy, when you have the capacity to do it, that you take that first step. So today was all about purpose, dreaming the impossible dream, but it's fine right now to finish the penguin, you know. That might be the good focus for right now. That's the purpose for now. Get that penguin knitted. I do hope you enjoyed that. I like ending on a positive note. We've been channeling the wartime experience. You know, we're sitting in the Ritz. I was going to go like that, as if I was smoking a cigarette, but as they did in the 1940s. But of course, we don't smoke anymore, do we? But anyway, we're sitting there. We're very elegant and looking good and beautiful. And at the, you know, if this was wartime outside, there'd be all sorts of things going on. But there would also be a voice in our ears, which was the voice that of Churchill, who was an incredible orator, and he did say some amazing things during that period. And one of the sort of catchphrases he had was KBO, which stands for keep buggering on. And it's a bit rude, but I think that's what we've all got to do right now. So I'm going to finish every day with KBO. You now know what that means, but just keep going, guys. We are getting there. We will get there. And maybe you, during this time, get very clear about what you would really like to do with the rest of your life. So thank you for listening today. I do look forward to seeing you tomorrow when I will be cutting my own hair. How hilarious. Bye-bye.